So we'll go ahead and get started. First, I want to thank Mr. Traig for being our guest speaker for our professional development series on mental health. Just to give a little introduction of who Mr. Traig is, Mr. Traig is a licensed clinical social worker with over 22 years of diverse experience with children, adolescents, and adults. He has served in a number of capacities during his 22 years as a social worker, including working as a school social worker at community clinics, program director of a children's facility, 4-H youth development agent, and various nonprofits. He also has his own private practice, which is Positive Behavior Solutions, LLC, as a therapist providing services to individuals, families, and groups. He is also a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated and a passionate Saints fan. He has dedicated his life to advocating for underserved populations as well. Mr. Traig, thank you for giving up your time today to be with us and to give us your knowledge on mental health. Just for everybody's record, this session is being recorded. We did have a number of individuals that they had work obligations that they wanted to see it, but was unable to due to other obligations. Therefore, we are recording it. Also, we are currently live on Facebook, so the Facebook world can see what is taking place also during this session. So without further ado, make sure everybody's mic is muted. You can turn your cameras off as Mr. Traig will be sharing his screen and giving us valuable information on this topic as well. There will be a question and answer period towards the end, and I'm sure he will be interacting throughout this session. So without further ado, Mr. Traig, it's all on you.
All right. Thank you, Xavier, for that wonderful introduction. I'm looking forward to being able to share some very, very valuable information to our community, the 4-H community, as well as those that's watching on Facebook. We're living in some very, very unpredictable times with COVID, which has had a life-changing experience for all the citizens of the United States. So with that in mind, we have to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, in particular, being mindful of our young folk, our children and our adolescents, and teaching them self-care techniques, as well as learning about so after so I'll be I won't be talking word, but I'll be using that PowerPoint feel to jump in and ask questions as possible. I want you guys to relax. This is a kind of an informal discussion. So there are no questions that are bad questions. So any questions that you have in the presentation, feel free to chime in. So let me see if I could share my screen real quick. All right.
Looks like Mr. Trigg had some technical difficulties. We're gonna give him a minute so he can rejoin it, and then we'll continue rolling. For those of you that's just joining, Mr. Traig is having technical difficulties. He's rejoining on a different device. So we're going to give him a few minutes in order to join back in. Just to give everybody another update, Mr. Traig is actually 5 minutes from his house. He was at his office. So he's going from his office to his house in order to give you guys the information that he has prepared. So it'll be another 5 to 10 minutes. So everybody just sit back. Again, thanks everybody for joining. It's technology, so and the weather outside is pretty bad. So just give him a few minutes and then he'll be on. And once he gets on, we'll get started. Well, everybody, Mr. Traig is back. We did have some technical difficulties, but it's the life that we currently live in using technology. So without further ado, we're going to turn this program over to Mr. Traig, and we're going to allow him to give us some very valuable information on the topic of mental health.
In another spot in my office, and so that Wi-Fi, I guess, wasn't working too well today. But anyway, that's the world that we in, as Xavier said, and so we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna make lemonade out of lemons. So you can move on to the next slide, Mr. Xavier. And you can keep going because we went through introductions already. What we're going to discuss at the end of this presentation, hopefully you are going to find out information about different diagnoses such as depression, anxiety, trauma, and collective trauma that we all are experiencing as a nation, locally, as a state, and also, as a parish. I'm going to talk a little bit about social emotional skills, the 5 domains, which connects directly to how we take care of ourselves and our mental health. And I'm gonna end it with talking about balance and stress. So I'll give you some tools to use. I have a few videos that we may look at if we have enough time to go through those videos on relaxation and grounding exercises. All right. So before I get to this, I want to put a question out, and anybody could feel free to chime in. Over the last 5 or 6 months, what are the changes that have occurred in your life or in your family or in your parish? What are some changes that have occurred due to pandemic? Anybody could chime in. Okay, so some of the change, who's that, Adrian? Most of the time inside, that's correct. So we have gone through a lot of changes, and we've had a shift in how we do things. Louisiana is a state where we are very nurturing and caring and affectionate, and we like to hug. We can no longer do those things because of social distancing, and we don't want to infect anybody else with the possibility of having COVID-19. We've had to do more Zoom meetings. Kids have had to do school online for the first time. You can't visit your loved ones. So we've gone through a number of changes over this period of time, which impacts our mental health. So it's okay not to be okay during this time. It's quite normal. Most people are going through some of the same emotions that you may be going through, but we need to have an open discussion and be okay with not being okay during this time. So mental health includes our emotional and psychological and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also determines how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. So it's basically everything that we do. Our thoughts lead to feelings, and our feelings lead to actions or behaviors. So we want to plant positive seeds, and that's where the social emotional connection is going to come in at. So Xavier, you can move on to the next slide. So the first one I want to talk about is depression. A lot of children and adolescent depression, it looks a little bit different than in adults. Some of the symptoms are similar, some are very, very different. And some of the symptoms of depression cross over with other diagnoses, such as anxiety or even ADHD, but you'll see the similarities as we go through. So some of the signs of depression include the trouble concentrating and remembering details and making decisions. Children and adolescents may be going through that during this period of time, during this pandemic, with a lot of moving parts, trying to figure out the unknowns about school, the unknowns about how we're going to reintegrate into the things that we normally used to do. Fatigue, feeling tired all the time, not having the energy to do the things that you usually were able to do with ease. Guilt and worthlessness or helplessness, insomnia, even having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, or even sleeping too much would be insomnia. Restlessness, a loss of interest, your appetite may change or alter. You may have a sudden change in weight, a loss of weight, aches and pains. So if you look at this list, it's a number of things, and it could lead to, at times, suicidal thoughts or attempts. And I want you to be sure, if you ever start to have those thoughts of suicide or having any of these symptoms, please be sure to talk with a caring adult or a parent or guardian immediately. Or parents or guardians that's on the live or on the Zoom call, if you notice changes in your child, you may want to have a conversation with them relative to how they're feeling and how they're doing, and assess them for these symptoms. And then we'll talk about what you need to do. What are the next steps after this? All right, Xavier. So the next one we talk about is anxiety in children and adolescents. This is one that most people would see, especially in school age children. Worrying and fears are common among children and adolescents. And it could be as simple as when will school restart, or it could be when are we going to be able to go outside? When will I be able to see my grandparents? When will we be able to go on vacation? Things like that. Or feeling worried about just being connected inside with your family all the time and not having the spacing that you may need to have your individual space. During adolescent time, most adolescents like to have their space and be away from from family members. So make sure that you're paying attention to those symptoms. Some children experience sense of fear, dread, and can't stop thinking of the stressful situation that's going on. So it's very important that we have dialogue often as possible with our kids about symptoms that may be present. You can go to the next slide here. So here are the symptoms. There are different types of anxiety. There's social anxiety, the fear of talking or being in front of people, separation anxiety, fear of being away from a loved one or a family member. Some kids experience that in pre-K and kindergarten when they're being dropped off. But we may see an increase in separation anxiety with kids returning back to school, not knowing if their loved one is going to be safe or not. Obsessive compulsive symptoms are we call OCD. These symptoms are for people who compulse over things, who do things over and over again. You may see kids start to doing things like that. Phobias as well as panic attacks. Working in a school system as a school social worker, many kids would sometimes get overwhelmed with whether it's schoolwork or family circumstance problems, and struggle with panic attacks, trouble breathing, heart palpitations, and so we do a lot of grounding work around that to help them get back to their norm, to regulate their emotions. So any significant and reduced level of function in the children and adolescent could lead to some of these symptoms of anxiety. You can move on, I'm sorry. So these are some of the common symptoms. Nervous or on the edge, unfounded or unrealistic fears, trouble separating from parents, sleep disturbances, obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors, trembling, stomach aches, as well as nail biting. And you may even see older adolescents exhibiting some cutting behavior. So be on the lookout for that, um, and monitor. If your kids are having a lot of internalized thoughts and feelings relative to what's going on, if they're isolating and not talking about the feelings and all of the current state that we're in. All right. Um, so trauma is what we all are experiencing during this time. And this is in addition to maybe some existing traumas that you or your child or family may have experienced. So trauma can include any event such as a sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, community violence, school violence, medical trauma, vehicle accidents, suicides, or any traumatic losses. Um, so during this time, what we have is collective trauma that is shared amongst everyone. Everyone that's on the call or everyone has had someone or that they may know of that have been impacted by COVID, whether it was a death or whether they um, were infected with COVID-19. And then on top of that, now we have the social justice challenges in the midst of our collective trauma and trauma with the pandemic and trying to uh, fight for equal justice and decrease incidents of police brutality and fairness with sentencing. So we have a lot that we are witnessing and experiencing. Our kids are seeing these things. So parents, as our kids return to school, we need to be sure that we are having intentional, productive conversations about how they're doing and what they're doing that's gonna that's impacting their daily functioning. These are very very unprecedented times, so we have to be intentional in our efforts to keep each other safe, keep our kids safe, and make sure that they are healthy and are aware of the symptoms of some of the mental health challenges. All right, you can move on. Um, Symptoms of trauma can include the following: shock, denial, the irritability, and as you can see, some of these are connected to the symptoms of anxiety as well as depression, guilt, shame, and self-blame, withdrawing from others, feeling sad or hopeless, disconnected, and hypervigilance, sensitive to your surroundings or the hidden dangers. We don't know who has COVID. I mean, COVID is like glitter. It's an unknown. I mean, you don't see it, and even though you may be taking all of the precautions, such as wearing your gloves, sanitize your hand, wearing your mask, you still don't know if you have been impacted. Some people don't get symptoms. Some people do get symptoms. So you may see, some nervousness in certain areas amongst our children and adolescents. All right. Um, so this was going back to our first slide that we talked about. These are some of the changes over the last 4 months. Um, School closed abruptly. I could remember, it was March 13th, and they told us we would be out of school for the next 2 weeks, and then it turned into going through the summer months, and now we're trying to figure out what the return is going to be. As adults, it's unsettling for us. So just imagine as an adolescent and a child trying to reconnect with your friends or that you maybe not didn't have a chance to see, goodbye to, or maybe didn't have a chance to talk to over the past few months and worry about how they're doing. Businesses have closed. Um, Social distancing has been a term that's used often and something should be practiced often. Quarantine, global pandemic. Most people didn't know what a global pandemic was prior to this. So we have had nearly 130,000 deaths in the U.S. alone. Um, 2.8 million infections in the U.S. alone. And wearing masks has become the new norm. It's like getting your keys for your car or having your phone by your side. You have to leave the house with your mask on. Um, Most businesses and schools have guidelines that's going to prepare them to open. And the new norm for talking and meeting is via Zoom or some type of format where we can continue to do the business that we have done. Kids have had to make these adjustments and adapt to these. So there's many other changes that have occurred. So just think about the shift that we have taken in just 4 months, but also the resilience that we have shown in doing the right thing and making sure that we are still in the business of serving and providing the best programs for our kids in the state, as well as making sure that they're getting the education that they need and taking care of our homes. All right. Um, so, mental health and social justice. We have had recently a lot of police brutality issues that have led to the death of innocent people, that Black and brown people, female and male adults, um, that we're seeing and our children are seeing. And now we have to have conversations about bias, and we have to have conversations about equality and treating everybody with respect, regardless of what they look like. So we have to be intentional about these things. There's a fight for equity. There have been local and national protests because of this. Conscious and unconscious bias. We have to do a lot of work in those areas in teaching our kids and as well as our adults about the impacts of conscious and unconscious bias and how it impacts those people that may be different from you. We have to take another look at the laws that impact minorities. Cory Booker said, you don't have to be one of those people that accept things as they are every day. Take responsibility for changing them right where you are. So we all have a duty to make efforts to change and do the things that we need to do so that everybody feels a sense of belonging. Everybody gets equality. Everybody has that the ability to do something, whether you're 5, whether you're a teenager, or whether you're an adult. Okay. And once again, it's okay not to be okay. As we talked about all of these challenges that we have faced and all of the changes, um, you know, some kids may experience some crying spells and some sleepless nights. So some of these things are quite normal. But if these issues persist for a long period of time, consistently over a 2-3 week period of time, you may want to consult with their pediatrician or find your local mental health office to get them assessed for either depression, anxiety, or some other mental health disorder, or maybe just an adjustment disorder, trying to figure things out for now, and get them into therapy. Um, your present circumstances don't determine where you can go; they merely determine where you start. So mental health challenges are not should not be viewed as a taboo thing, because at one time or another we all may be impacted by depression or anxiety. Some of us may need to be in therapy to have some some periods where we are able to talk to professionals to help put some pieces of the puzzle together. And some of these symptoms have been exacerbated by previous mental health or other challenges that may have existed. Um, some of these mental health challenges may be impacted because a family member may have suffered with depression or anxiety. So the likelihood of children and adolescents getting suffering with anxiety or depression increases a great deal. But it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to seek out counsel, and it's okay to talk with your family and friends if you're struggling with some of these emotions. All right, Xavier, you can move on. As I said earlier, mental health, what you should do is if you feel any of these symptoms that we talked about today, you should first talk with a parent, guardian, or a trusting adult immediately. And parents or adults that's on the call, when your child comes to you and say, I'm not feeling well, I'm not sleeping, I'm feeling anxious all the time, I'm nervous, I have thoughts of harming myself at times. I want you to be as open as possible and have a conversation and say, this must be tough. Let's figure out a plan to get you some help. I don't want you to convict them for having these feelings and saying, minimize the feelings that they're having or the symptoms that they're having, because that's not going to help the situation. I want you to be open and make sure that you are connecting with them emotionally so that they could feel heard and know that, they have a caring adult that's going to make sure that they get the help that they need. If parents and for our adolescents and children that are able to use the phone, if you are having thoughts of suicide, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is here on the screen. Xavier will have access to this PowerPoint that he can share with you guys, and I will post that number somewhere in the house or have it. Put it in your phone somewhere so that if you need to make that call, and you make that call. Okay. All right, Xavier. All right. So with any mental health challenge, there are interventions that help. Therapy. As a therapist, in my own private practice for the past 7 years, I've worked mostly with children and adolescents around issues of trauma, as well as family circumstances, whether it was a divorce issue or whether there was some bullying going on at school. Therapy helps. So finding the right therapist that's going to, meet your child where they are, or meet the adolescents where they are, is really important. It's just like a relationship. Sometimes you don't connect, but there are many therapists, and you could find therapists on Psychology that they using your zip code for therapists in your area. Therapy. You can use private insurance as well as any of the value health plans. So grounding exercises. What are grounding exercises? Grounding exercises help to connect us and get us back to our safe place and our norm. So I like to do grounding exercises sometimes at the beginning of therapy sessions as a tool so that children and adolescents know what to do when they're faced with some of the symptoms that they have. I have a YouTube video. It's about 5 minutes long. I'm not sure if we could turn it on or not.
We
That's
can
going to
turn it
talk
on.
through. Say again?
We can turn it on.
Okay. Talk us through the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise. So take a look at this and we'll move on to the next one.
This mindfulness exercise is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is a great exercise to help bring you back to the present moment when you're starting to feel stressed out. This exercise helps you focus on your senses. So to get started, settle into your seat, your chair, or on your floor, wherever you are. And let's take a big team breath together, in through your nose and out through your mouth. I invite you to look around and notice 5 different objects that you see. Close your eyes or gaze down if that's more comfortable for you, and notice 4 different sounds. attention within. Notice 3 feelings or sensations you are experiencing right now. And now bringing your attention to your sense of smell, notice 2 smells. And you can use your hands or your shirt. And bringing your attention to your sense of taste. What do you notice? Let's everybody take a team breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And slowly wiggle your toes and your fingers and bring your attention back to the room. And remember that this exercise is good to help you when you're feeling stressed out and help you bring you back to the present moment just by noticing 5 things. Maybe notice 5 things that are the same color or 5 different shapes and 4 sounds that will help bring you back to the present moment and focus on what's in front of you. Congrats on taking time for yourself by practicing mindfulness. Take care.
So mindfulness is in doing grounding exercises is something that you could do on your own, whether you're at school, whether you're at home. You could speak with your teachers if you're having a tough time when you're at school and ask them, can I get 5 minutes to kind of get myself together? Maybe you could do that exercise. There's many others. If you go on YouTube, I know many of you like to be on YouTube. You can Google grounding exercises. There's several others that you may benefit from if this one doesn't work for you. Then there's guided meditation. Guided meditation talks you through stress points from your head to your toe. There's 5-minute guided meditations. There's 10, 20 minutes. It just depends on what you need during that time. You owe it to yourself to make attempts to stay grounded and connected so that you can be the best version of yourself when it's time to do schoolwork, homework, or connect with family on a challenging issue. So we don't have to look at that one. Some other things you can do is get involved with local youth activities. There's 4-H, there's Boys and Girls Club. There's so many youth development organizations that you could become a part of that could help be very transformative in your life and connect you with people or youth and adults that that will help you through tough times. Exercise, walk, run, bike ride. During this COVID was the first time that we as a family walked together in our neighborhood on a regular basis. So that was fun. So I said earlier about making lemonade out of lemons. So, look at the good that you can do. Take care of the things that you can control. And the things that's out of your control, just make sure that you are having conversations and being transparent about how it's impacting you. Positive affirmations daily. I love positive affirmations. Sometimes I start my day off with affirmations. You can Google affirmations. You can see that I had a couple of affirmations throughout this presentation. Journaling helps, especially for those adolescents and youth that don't necessarily like to talk about their feelings as much. Maybe you could write about them or draw about them. And if you're comfortable, share them with a loved one. And also creative writing. Write about your experience. You could write about what has happened and what has occurred during these last 4 months. So there's many things that you could do in interventions that you could take to intervene on some of the symptoms that you may have as a result of of depression, anxiety, or the trauma, or or any other challenge that you may be facing. All right, Xavier. You guys probably are going to be hearing a lot of this, and you probably have heard a lot of this over the past years, especially being in school. Social emotional learning, those are 5 competencies. They connect directly with a lot of the things that you do in some of your youth organizations. So self-awareness, understand your emotions and thoughts and how they influence your behavior. I said earlier, your thoughts are like seeds. They lead to feelings, and your feelings lead to behaviors. So becoming self-aware of how you feel and how your emotions are impacting you. Self-management, the ability to manage your feelings, regulating your emotions, regulate how you solve problems and behaviors. Responsible decision making, how you solve problems with peers, how you solve problems yourself, how you behave. Social awareness. We talked earlier about a social justice issue that's currently going on. So being able to empathize with others' point of view and seeing the other side, understanding and connecting with people that you don't have things in common with, connecting with people who can't pay a favor back to you. Relationship skills, the ability to communicate and connect with a range of people in healthy ways. This is probably one of the most important competencies. If there's no relationship, it's hard to connect. Just think about your connection with your teachers. How many of you have had teachers that you didn't connect with? So therefore, it was a challenge with getting the information that you needed. But those teachers that you had a positive relationship with, the outcomes of your grades probably was a lot greater than not. So relationship is very, very important in all spectrums of life, whether it's a teacher, parent, sibling, work. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Martin Luther King. All right, we can move on. So we're going to talk specifically about these 5 competencies and what they look like in practice. So under self-awareness, identifying and building on your strengths. What are your strengths? What are you good at? What does this have to do with mental health? Because if we focus on the things that we're not good at, it does not make us feel very well. But if we focus on the strengths, we can get good at the things. It gives us confidence to work on the things that we want to work on that we're not very good at. Exploring your identities, things that you can identify with, things that you can connect with. Exploring personality and learning styles. Everybody learns different. So you have to figure out what makes you the person that you are in terms of exploring your learning. Building on emotional intelligence and understanding stress and stressor. This competency will help you to become self-aware and help you to understand what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the things I want to work on, what are the goals I need to set for myself. And all helps with self-care and improving mental health overall. All right, we'll go to the next competency. Self-management. How you promote a growth mindset. So what's a growth mindset? Growth mindset is understanding that, you may be able to do this amount of work today, but at the end of the quarter, you'll be able to do this amount by setting short, achievable goals with objectives that's going to help build upon those goals. Promoting perseverance. So you have to work through some tough challenges. We're working through this paradigm shift with learning and learning to connect with our friends and family. So we are persevering. Nurturing motivation to learn. Learning should take place every day, whether or not your teacher is giving you assignments or your parents is giving you assignments. Try to learn something new every day, whether it's a subject or whether it's about somebody or something. Facilitate your goal setting, learn emotional regulation, and integrate mindfulness practices such as what we did with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 activity. Some people like to include yoga in their daily life. Next slide. As children and adults, you're going to be faced with many opportunities to make decisions. These are some of the steps that you would take to make those decisions. Am I making this decision out of anger because I need to move on? I need to be able to articulate what it is I'm trying to achieve, explore alternatives, evaluate whether this is the tool that I need to solve this particular problem, whether it's a problem with a friend where you're trying to solve an issue, whether it's a parent problem or a school problem. Then you're going to evaluate and assimilate the task that you're trying to achieve. Okay. Social awareness. So with social awareness, sometimes we have to make sure, well, all the time we have to make sure that we are actively listening to people that are having a difference of opinion from us. It shows that you care about what they're saying. Being conscious of other people's feelings relative to differences. I work in a very, very diverse school environment, and we purposely plan activities around the culture that exists in our school building. So it gives us opportunity to learn about different cultures, Vietnamese, Hispanic, African American. So we're intentional about putting our kids and staff in a place where, you know, you can't make up something in your mind. You learn it and you practice it and you get to know those other cultures. I know 4-H is big on the big M, creating that sense of belonging with the B, a safe environment. When you don't feel safe in an environment, it's difficult for you to maximize your potential. And I don't mean physical safety, I mean emotional safety. Do I connect with the people here? Are the people here making me feel like I belong here? So in your school environment, I want you guys to be intentional and purposeful about seeking out those students that don't always connect with everyone. So you find those students and you talk with them and you try to join them into your space with your friends. Civic engagement and community resources are also part of social awareness. All right. And the last and more important one that I talked about is relationship skills. So learning those social skills such as conflict resolution, learning to join in conversations, learn to say I'm sorry, learn to use I statements, those active listening skills. So all of those are part of relationship building skills. And you know, I think more important is the art of connecting with people. So if those are skills that you're struggling with, you can Google SAIL activities. You could Google. Am I cut off?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't see the slide anymore. Okay. You could Google SAIL activities. And they'll have some activities in each one of those different 5 domains. Okay. So we can move on to the next one. I don't see it on my screen.
Mr. Traig, it's the video.
Say again?
It's the video. You want to play that one?
Yeah, play that video. It's one of the, it's just tell a little bit more in depth about SAIL. It's about 5 minutes long.
Social and emotional skills are the essential skills for success in school, work, and life.
Social emotional learning centers their mind and body. It reduces their emotional tension so they can be open to new content and material. We find that academic outcomes increase exponentially when students are nurtured, loved, and cared for, that we get much more out of them when we first address social emotional needs. So for us, it's actually an academic intervention and not just an emotional one.
If we expect students to be college and career ready, it's important for us to focus on these skills and competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Self-awareness is the ability to identify your emotions, to be able to tie thoughts and feelings to behaviors.
We find that self-awareness is one of the hardest things for young people, being aware of their own body space and the impact of their words and emotions on other people. So a lot of the work we do is reflective, through conflict mediation, through circles, through journaling, having them see their own impact on the world and then how to shift that or make a different choice next time.
Self-management is the ability to self-motivate, to have self-control, to regulate one's emotions.
In the classroom, that may be a breathing exercise, or that might be counting to 5 or taking a break.
So with students who don't really know how to deal with their anger or don't really know how to resolve conflict, we're giving them a tool that helps them deal with it in a less stressful way.
Social awareness is about embracing diversity, showing empathy for others. Activities might include service learning projects, addressing social justice issues. Role-playing is a great opportunity for students to address how a person might have felt in a conflict on the playground.
We're going to see if other people have had some of the very same experiences around bullying that we've had.
You're in my boat if you have a bully now.
Wow, I see a lot of people.
Relationship skills are important in project-based learning. It's the ability to work cooperatively with someone, to resolve conflict.
It's the one skill you need your whole life. You may not need calculus tomorrow, but you have to know how to work in relationship, whether it's for a coworker or a life partner. You have to know how to handle conflict and how to handle challenges.
Sometimes at recess, Miney would come over and just start talking about us and saying mean things.
Is it your job to make Danae's job at school hard?
No, I know it's a form of bullying, and sometimes I'll say sorry to her.
So you choose to be someone's ally and make a better choice.
Responsible decision-making is considering the well-being for self and others. It's evaluating the consequences for various behaviors or actions. We do this through shared agreements, one-to-one problem solving, or having students debate an issue.
If you were like, hey, Kashida, how much does an A cost in this class? And you took out your wallet and I was like, I think $50 would work. Which one of us would be corrupt in that case?
You're the one that's asking for the money?
We're truly teaching these students to be productive citizens. We're teaching them life skills. We're teaching them how to problem solve effectively. We're teaching them how to be resilient.
I think of all the billions of dollars we've spent on Title I and all these intervention programs, and when all is said and done, what do we have to show for it? I think we're trying to teach technical things instead of devoting some of the resources to teach who you are as a person. Once you know who you are, then learning becomes exciting because you've already established a discipline.
It's important for teachers and principals to understand that it can't be a binder off the shelf. It can't be something that happens from 2:15 to 4:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It has to be part of the school culture.
Giving teachers flexibility, giving them a range of skills, giving them different ways that it can look, and allowing them to take their own personality and match that to what they want in their classroom has been the best way to get authentic, true practice.
If we continue to do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we always got. Is that good enough? I don't think it's good enough for the 21st century. We need to be the outliers to try things that have never been tried and see if they work. What are we waiting for?
All right. So that's a little bit about social emotional learning, which a lot of our children and adolescents are getting in school through the positive behavior interventions, as well as some skills that they are learning to practice and getting to know themselves and managing behaviors and managing thoughts and feelings. Those are great skills that are transferable as we try to reduce some of the symptoms of mental health challenges that some may face due to the changes that have occurred and due to the things that they may have witnessed over the past 4 to 5 months. And also on the next slide, we're talking about stress management. How do kids show stress? What do they do to manage that? Kids don't grow are not born with tools to learn to manage stress. We have to teach them those skills and try to help them create that balance, especially as they grow older into move from childhood into adolescence. So here are some a few tips on helping them to learn to create a balanced life. So balance responsibilities. So let your kids understand what their responsibilities are. And kids, you should understand what your responsibilities are at home, at school, with your friends. Try to have a healthy balance between all of those things. Disconnect from things that that you're spending too much time with, such as maybe it might be a game system. It may be you may be talking on the phone too much. It may be so. Try to create a balance with all of those different domains in your life, so that you can live a balance and manage some of the stress that you may be experiencing. So outside balancing responsibilities, manage those responsibilities. So most of you guys have cell phones now. So if there are things that you need to do, instead of saying I forgot, put them in your cell phone. Use your calendar as a tool for when I want to do my chores. Instead of time on it. When will I be doing my schoolwork? When will I do my research? What time will I do practice? And and share your calendar with someone so that you can have accountability person, such as a friend or even a parent. So I'm going to share my calendar. These are things that I have going on this week. So utilize your technology to get the things that you need to get done. Healthy food habits, fruit, vegetables. Try to stay away from a lot of the fast food, fried, fatty foods. I know it's hard to do because sometimes we just like what we like, and we eat emotional eating sometimes. But as much as possible, try to balance between your healthy eating and some of the foods that may not be as healthy. Getting proper sleep. Research tells us that for your age range, you need to be getting between 8 and 10 hours of sleep every night. I always look at it as filling your car tank up. Your car will not move on an empty tank. So make sure you're filling up your tank every day by getting proper sleep so that you can maximize what you need to do in the next day, especially when school starts back. We want to make sure that you're developing those healthy sleep habits every night. Make time to exercise. As you saw earlier in one of the slides, we talked about exercising, reducing some of the symptoms of depression and anxiety. It also helps with managing stress as well. Find an exercise that you enjoy doing, whether it's swimming, bike riding, elliptical, weights, whatever it may be. And setting boundaries. Children and adolescents, it's okay to not have to join in on everything that your peers are doing. It's okay to say no to some things that you really, really are not interested in doing. And be okay with saying no and not even have to explain why you're saying no. So make that a habit now, so that when you become an adult, you could be able to set those boundaries when you need to set those boundaries on, and not filling up your plate more than you can handle. And Maya Angelou said, if you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. So just basically change how you feel about it. If there's something that you can't change. All right, last slide. You can move to the next one, Xavier. All right. So I end with these quotes. You can never do a kindness too soon, for you never know how soon it will be too late. We have to practice kindness every single day. Find something that you could do kind for someone, whether it's a word or whether it's an act. You never know the impact that it will have on that person's life. So try to be kind as much as possible. And the last quote is, do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. So that's by John Wesley. So work hard, do good, and practice self-care as often as possible. And as we continue to face this pandemic and social justice issues, adolescents and teens, and children, I want you to be open as possible with an adult about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and what you're seeing. And parents, create that space, that safe place in your households where kids are comfortable enough to come and talk with you about what they're experiencing. And so that concludes my presentation. I open it up. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to do that at this time. And once again, I want to thank you guys for giving me this forum to talk about mental health and social, emotional challenges, as well as stress management. And hopefully it's some tools that you guys could use in your everyday life.
So now the floor is open for questions. Anybody who has a question, you're more than welcome to unmute your mic. You can put in the chat, and then you can ask any question that you might have for Mr. Traig.
All right. Any questions? None? Okay. Well, thank you guys once again.
Mr. Traig, we have a question in the chat.
Oh, there is? Okay.
The question says, as we transition into school, whatever that looks like, what are some ways parents can support their children?
Okay. Just like I said earlier, make sure that you are intentional about those conversations and letting your kids know that I am here with you. I know, see that I know that this is difficult. These are the expectations for school. And parents, if you don't feel comfortable, I would definitely have a conversation with the administration so that you can feel comfortable having those conversations with your kids about what social distancing is going to look like in school, what efforts the school is taking to make sure that your kids are safe, so that you could transfer that information to them in a positive way. The fear of the unknown could bring us through a range of emotions, and I think that's what we all are going through, because we really don't know. We don't know what's going to happen when school opens, even with, you know, the phasing in of phase 1, 2, and 3, and even with the guidelines and the students coming out. I mean, the schools coming out with their plans. So for me, definitely having a conversation, getting the information so that you could transfer it over to them, and also sharing with them and connecting with the feelings that they may be experiencing. I know this is difficult, but these are the steps that the school is taking, and this is what I'm going to do to make sure that you are safe. Good question.
Any other questions in the out there? You're more than welcome to open up your mic. You can put in the chat. Question is, how do we suggest we motivate kids in this virtual environment as, I guess, youth development professionals?
Yeah, that's yes, that's something that, you know, is a work in progress, because I have a 13-year-old and I have to keep motivated and keep her connected to doing what she needs to do on her Zoom calls or whatever platform the school is using. So I think creating the schedule, understanding what the expectations of the school is, so that you can be the accountability person, whether it's an older adolescent who may need minimal support, but at least you'll have the information you need to say, okay, I know at 1 o'clock you're supposed to be on the Zoom with your math teacher. Because, you know, stress sometimes, as one of the symptoms of depression and anxiety, they may forget. It may not be intentional. So, you know, having the same information that they get, so that you can motivate them in this virtual world that we're experiencing. And with our little ones, you know, building some brain breaks for our students. I know some of the schools are being intentional about building in brain breaks, you know, during certain times of the lesson. They may, you know, say, we're going to take a 5 or 10 minute break, so that you can kind of snap away from the screen and do something, walk around a little bit, drink some water, get a snack. So there are a number of things, but I think more importantly is have the information on what the school is expecting from your child via the virtual environment, so that you could support them and give them whatever they need, as well as being an accountability partner for them.
All right. If we don't have any more questions, Mr. Traig, I want to thank you for taking the time out again to give us this information. I truly enjoyed listening and learning about mental health and what we as a youth development professional can do to assist the youth that I do serve in East Feliciana Parish. And I'm sure other agents that are on the call feel the same way as well. You have any last words that you would like to say?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to my favorite quote throughout the presentation is, it's okay not to be okay. Let's normalize that, but also let's do something about it when we find that our children and adolescents are not feeling okay. Let's, you know, intervene to get them back to their norm. So let's make sure that they don't feel like something is wrong with them if they're not okay right now.
All right, and everybody that's joining us, I want to thank you for registering and joining us through Zoom, and also if you're watching us on Facebook at this time, I want to thank you for joining our first session with our professional development series on mental health, presented by Mr. Traig. Next week, we will be talking about career readiness, and we have Mrs. Joyce Fields from the LSU Career Center, who will be giving us a lot of information on becoming prepared for a career, what resources, what free resources are available to anybody that you can use to learn more about yourself, career-wise, and anything in between. So with that, I want to thank everybody again for joining Mr. Traig. Thank you again. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day.
All right. Thank you, guys.